Yeah, big goal for Harry Kane on his 400th appearance for Tottenham. First time he scored in 5 successive Premier League games. It was difficult for Spurs. They had to grind that win out, didn't they?
Huge result. I think the manager deserves a lot of credit. He made a good substitution in a game that was not really going anywhere. It looked like it might peter out and 0-0. He could have gone with Brian Gill when he lost Richarlison. He could have brought on Moura. But he decided to thicken up the midfield, get an extra body in there, get wing-backs up. And I think when he played, it made that point himself, because it was home in the first half. They were getting outnumbered in there. You get more bodies in the right area to control the game. But saying all of that, what it boils down to is the goalkeeper making a really poor mistake. It's a back pass. He's got to save it. Once you go 1-0 down, White Hart Lane, Tottenham's buzzing, and then it was only really one winner. But the manager deserves a lot of credit because he made a really good substitution.
When I saw Spurs' team sheet against Brighton and he took out the attacking player and brought in an extra midfielder, I was worried that it may make a defensive even more defensive. But it actually had the opposite effect. It actually allowed them to have an extra man in midfield, have more possession, get up into the opposition half more as a team, as opposed to 3 strikers and the rest staying back. So it's weird because it looks like a defensive change, but it actually had the opposite effect against Brighton, and unfortunately for us tonight as well. And
I think when you get the 2 up there as well, you get Harry Kane and Son together. The only downside to this system is because Kulusevski will want to play, Richarlison want to play, Harry Kane has to play. So you've got Richarlison, Kulusevski and Son fighting for one place. So it's more difficult. But when you have that control in midfield, and I think back to when he had his system that he played a lot when he was at Chelsea, they played with 2 out and out, wing backs and a midfield 3, and it worked, and you get control. And I think you can really see it helped them, it benefited them. Bentancur was able to knew that they had that defensive solidity with Bissouma just doing that job in front of the back 3, and it really helped them.
I think the criticism of probably Spurs before was great starting 11, but what have you got coming off the bench? Whereas now, like you said, you've got Kulusevski and Richarlison or Bissouma who can't get in the 11. So, listen, it's a great problem to have
exactly.
if you're a Spurs manager.
But you play those areas where it's so important, because if you looked at where the goal actually comes from, it goes from wing back to wing back. Got a Perisic and he's going to keep running onto Son. There's players everywhere, but when you're an out-and-out wing-back, you know you're going to get the ball, you're going to go, and it's almost like a UV your man that you're up against, be it Seamus Coleman or whatever side it is on the other one. And it just seems to give Spurs a bit of more licence to get forward. They look much more confident and comfortable in that formation, and that's where the goal actually comes from.
Yeah, we played Spurs a few years ago when I was at Palace, and we defended exactly the same. Low block, very narrow. And I think it was Gareth Bale, and at the time just kept switching the ball. We couldn't get close to them, and I think they ran out 4 or 5-0 winners that day. And in the first half, they didn't really utilise those wide areas. And I don't know if it's something that Antonio Conte mentioned at half-time, because, like we said, the first goal, it was a clear switch of play. Alex Iwobi trying his best to get from one side of the pitch to the other, but obviously the ball moves a lot quicker than the man.
But you've also got your wing back there. You've got Doherty calling for the Son and Kane in close proximity. Well, that's a back pass. He's got to save that. I don't care what you say. That is a really bad piece of goalkeeping. But watch how quickly Harry Kane reacts. He gets a header, Connor Cody, and that's why he's one of the best in the business, Andros.
Yeah, no, listen, since I've been at the club 18 months, Jordan Pickford's been one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League, especially towards the end of last season, kept us in the division. Yeah. So there's nothing negative. Goalkeepers in the Premier League, towards the end of last season, kept us in the division. Yeah. So there's nothing negative I can say about him. I will not blame him for that, and I'm sure the manager will be saying the same in the dressing room to try and lift his spirits.
Are you both convinced it was a penalty? Because from a couple of angles, you could make the argument that it's Kane running into Jordan Pickford.
I'd love to sit here and blame the ref, blame VAR, but unfortunately, I think Jordan Pickford's reaction gives it away.
On that left thigh there. It's definitely a penalty. Definitely. Harry Kane just reacts so well, and that's why he sniffs it out, he senses danger. Because normally you think he's going to catch that. He doesn't. He just nips in front.
It's a shame, because I didn't see him scoring. We were so comfortable in the first half. We had the better chances. It's a shame that so early on in the second half, they managed to break our resolve.
Did you fancy Harry? You missed one in midweek?
should never think that Jordan, with his experience of saving penalties when they go away with England, I thought he would guess the right way. He did, but obviously the man is a genius in front of goal.
He wasn't far off though, Jordan Pickford.
No. He done everything right, didn't he? But listen, when you're striking the ball with that much power as Harry Kane does, it's always going to be difficult, even if you do guess the right way.
It must be frustrating for Harry Kane at the moment, because he's got 9 goals so far this season. In any season, that's a great return. It's still a great... It must be frustrating for Harry Kane at the moment, because he's got 9 goals so far this season. In any season, that's a great return. It's still a great return in this season, but he's looking at coming up with 15 Premier League goals so far. Anybody's going to look lesser in comparison, even if they're having a season like Harry Kane's.
Yeah, you know what? Harry normally starts the season slow as well. He never scores in August, but this season he started on fire. He's got 9 goals in 10 games, I think it is. His best return of his career at this stage, but he's so far away from...
I think he's so important as well. And, you know, in terms of his England prospects of trying to get into that squad, he's doing himself no harm. Calvert-Lewin came on for 20 minutes. Is he going to have enough time to get back to that World Cup squad? But Harry will be... He'll know he's got it all on, but he'll be up for this fight, because he'll know that he'll probably think to himself, can Erling keep doing what he's doing? You know, he only needs 2 or 3 games out. Harry Kane's capable of getting goals, but it's going to be a real... The Golden Boot's still going to be interesting.
The problem is as well, when Harry's at the World Cup, Erling's going to be sitting there on the beach with his feet up, resting up. So
I reckon he just does finishing. He goes home and does shooting practice. He's that sort of guy, isn't he?
Do you know, and also, if it was anyone else, you'd say, well, you know, he might be lacking a bit of match fitness when everybody comes back from the World Cup. But because it's Erling Haaland again, you're just kind of assuming that it's going to be the best case scenario. But for Harry Kane as well, we talk about the World Cup coming up. That must be playing into his mind as well, in terms of the fast start, which is in contrast to how he usually performs right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I don't... Andros will know him better than I will. I just don't see him. I think, of course, he's thinking of the World Cup, but he's thinking about winning trophies for Tottenham. He wants to put to bed all the things that have been said about him, you know, not winning. Yes, he might win. You know, it's one thing being the Premier League's top goal scorer, but you want silverware as a player. And that's what people will always be able to throw at him if he doesn't win anything in that club. Now, he knows, while you've got a manager and a winner like Antonio Conte at the club, you've got every chance. They've got a great chance this year. We've spoken so highly about Arsenal, but look at Tottenham, 1 point behind them now. They're in great form, their best ever Premier League start. It's probably not been as exciting as what Arsenal, or as expansive as what they're doing, but the performances and the results have been really good. And they know they've got to play Arsenal at home again towards the back end of the season. I think they're in a great position right now, Tottenham. You know, they ground it out today. It wasn't easy. It wasn't their best. They weren't, you know, certainly first half they really struggled, but second half was a big 3 points for them. Yeah,
we're no pushovers this season either. Maybe last season there were 1 or 2 games where we've gone behind and rolled over, but I think this is the first game we've lost by more than 1 goal. We're always in it to the last moment, pushing. So this is, it was unfortunately a top victory for Spurs tonight.
It was a top victory. It was hard fought, but it did end up with that 2-0 scoreline with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg on the score sheet. Yeah. But it was more about the way that Spurs managed to create the opportunity, and Harry Kane involved in this.
But also Basuma. So you've got your 3 midfield players that you talk about there. There's Basuma, he wins it. Harry Kane obviously gets a bit lucky with a touch there, but he manages to take it away. And then you see Bentancur makes a run off him. Now, he wouldn't have been able to do that first half because he was so worried about getting outnumbered in there. Then you've got your other midfield player, Højbjerg, up there. Takes a good touch. Yeah, it's a little bit of luck with the finish, but you know what? He deserved it. He's run off the back of the Everton midfielder, obviously chasing at the moment, trying to get back into the game. But that is a really good ball by Bentancur and a good finish. And you wouldn't have been able to do that in the first half because you would have obviously you'd have just left your defence vulnerable. So that's what that change of system really did with adding Yves Basuma.
And I think Spurs have had a lot of criticism this season and last season about scoring the first goal and then sitting back and allowing teams to come onto you. But this shows perfectly. I think on this occasion we were a bit adventurous. Dwight McNeil played, he was very disciplined tonight, and Alex Iwobi, he was the right wing back. They decided to go forward and we were punished by Harry Bentancur and then Højbjerg with the finish.
Yeah, and Alex Iwobi a bit unlucky there with the deflection for the goal. I think when he came off, Højbjerg was saying, was it an own goal? He was very much on target. It wasn't anything that sort of necessarily changed the outcome, or possibly Pickford could have got to it.
Yeah, no, as a player, you don't have the luxury of a replay. You're so in the moment. All you're concerned about is that it goes in the back of the net. So I fully believe him when he says that he didn't know whether it was his goal or an own goal or not.
The celebrations from Antonio Conte after that second goal particularly were so intense. Did that just show how difficult that game was? Was that an indication of how hard they had to fight?
Absolutely, Kelly. And Josh just said it, alluded to it. Everton were so in this game. They had great opportunities first half. They could have been 1, maybe 2 goals ahead. And he would have been thinking, how do I change this game? How do I do something to turn it in our favour? And it worked out. It was an injury that did that. You know, I think Richarlison did him a massive favour. You obviously don't want him to be out for too long, but sometimes in the game you have to make what looks like a backward substitution to get a grip of the game and then get the opportunities off the back of it. And it just really helped them. I think the fact that he did it, he played that way last week against Brighton, obviously helped the players. The midfield looked better. Forwards, you get Kane and Son together. Back 3 looked in shape, and you get your 2 wing-backs getting into areas where they feel more comfortable. So it just worked out perfectly for them. And he knows that that price of getting those 3 points was absolutely vital today.
And I think when you look at the stats, it doesn't make great reading. It doesn't tell the full story, but we probably should have won this game. With the chances we had in the first half, Damari's chance on the break and then Onana's chance just before half-time, we should have gone in at half-time at 1-0. And then with the quality that we have and the leadership and the structure we have in the team, we would have been even tougher to break down. So, yeah, I'm sure those guys in the dressing room are extremely disappointed that they weren't able to go in at half-time ahead.